This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, it is May 27th, 2021. And thank goodness, like I just got my vaccine. I have my first guest tonight with my vaccine, and this guy knows all about sticking needles in people.
Yes.
And I don't feel any after effects. I'm fine.
That's
And
good.
knock on wood. But folks, I have a wonderful interview guest tonight. In fact, I'm so thrilled to have him. Um, in fact, I feel the same way I did whenever I got Ted White on here from Friday the 13th, the final chapter as Jason, and Dick Warlock as Michael Myers in Halloween 2. Well, I have another killer on the show today. We have Art the Clown himself from Terrifier. We have the awesome. We have the brilliant David Howard Thornton. How do you do, David?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I came prepared today. I'm wearing a Harley Quinn. I didn't have an Art the Clown
Yes.
shirt, so I
Hey,
thought
I love it though. I love Harley Quinn.
I've actually got a lot. I've got 2 or 3 Harley Quinn T-shirts here, and I got a lot of like the figurines.
Oh, fan. Have you
Yeah,
seen the new animated series, the Harley Quinn animated series?
I haven't, but I gotta say Margot Robbie looks great.
Oh yeah. Well, you have to see the animated series. It's hysterical. It's so funny, so good.
So what would happen if Art the Clown and Harley Quinn encountered each other?
Oh God. Probably the same thing that happens with her with Joker. It's like he would just be like, okay, what is your problem? It was like because I kind of look at that whole relationship between Joker and Harley. He kind of basically uses her as an ends to a means and nothing else, but she's all gung ho over him. So she'd probably go crazy over Art as well. But she's like, oh, he's a strong silent type.
Yeah, yep. Something tells me she wouldn't be bothered by him.
No, no, she's just like, we need to do something about your teeth.
Well, I just discovered Terrifier just not too long ago. It was one of those films that really didn't make the theater runs, or at
Right.
least not here. But it's one that was popping up all over the place, either online or in the gore magazines. And yeah, it came across my table, and I gotta say, Art the Clown, like the 80s seemed to be the big buildup. I mean, back in the old age of Hollywood, we had your Frankenstein, your Dracula, and your Wolfman and Mummy, and all of those.
Right.
And you had figures like your Vincent Price and your Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff and in the mix,
Hmm.
And then you moved into the 80s. You got your Michael Myers, you got Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Chucky, Pinhead, Leatherface. All of those. I could go on. And it almost seemed to me that a lot of those became very self parodies of themselves.
Hmm.
Then Art the Clown comes along, and he's probably the first big thing since Jigsaw and the Saw franchise. Would you not agree with that?
I would completely agree with you.
Well,
Not
before.
not for no, like people haven't tried. It's just
Mhm.
something hasn't really stuck with the public since Jigsaw.
Well, they tried with the Cat in the Hat, but that really didn't work.
You dirty hoe.
That was just a horror film on the career of Mike Myers.
Yeah. Oh.
Before we talk about this film, though, I want to know a little bit about your background and how you come to be an actor, if it's something that you've always wanted to do, and how it led to Terrifier.
Yeah. I like to say I came out of the womb acting. My parents are very involved with our church's theater of all things, and so I got involved at a very early age doing like all the little children's choir shows and stuff like that. And I kind of liked it, but I didn't really pursue it too much as a kid. It was just like a little hobby of mine. And then I was in middle school and I got bullied a lot, and because I went to a new school where people didn't know me, didn't know how I was in elementary school, and so I went from being like the cool kid in elementary school to being like the unknown nerd that everybody bullied in middle school. And my mom was like, "Have my eighth grade year when I was really having a tough time. I mean, I literally tried to commit suicide in eighth grade because I was just so depressed and because of all that I was going through." And my mom was like, you're such a funny guy. Have your classmates ever seen this side of you? I don't understand why everybody gives you a hard time at school." And I'm like, "No, they don't allow me to express myself." And she's like, "Well, why don't you audition for your choir's production this year of Mickey's Christmas Carol? I think this would give everybody a chance to see who you really are, that they could finally see this funny side of you, and I think they will like you." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll do that." And I auditioned for it, and I got the role of Mickey Mouse, Bob Cratchit. And in the production of the show, when we're performing in front of the whole entire school, things started to go wrong on stage. Like one part that the set fell down on top of Scrooge and I. Thank God it was a cardboard set. And another part, when we were having the Cratchit family dinner, our table broke and ended up launching the chicken over the audience. And I was like, "Oh boy, we got fast food tonight." I just started improvising on the spot and cracking jokes while everything was getting fixed. I just didn't stop. And I had everybody just cracking up in the audience. And I just, it was that feeling of being in control. And I had the power for once. And they weren't laughing at me, they were laughing with me. And I loved that feeling. I'm like, I'm making all these people happy right now. I love this feeling. And it changed a lot of things for me. And my mom was like, "Well, if you like this, why don't you audition for like community theater productions?" And so I was like, "Okay." And so I started auditioning, and I finally got involved with like doing a lot of local community theater productions. And I really like doing theater, but when I went to college, I decided to major in elementary education because I figured at least with that I would have a stable income.
Hmm.
But then near the end of my college years, my mom passed away from cancer, which totally screwed me up mentally. I went through a very big, huge, depressing stage of my life because we had a lot of other stuff that happened the year after my mom passed away when I was going back to do my internships in the schools. In the month's time, this is a year after my mom died. My dog died. My grandmother died. A friend of mine committed suicide, and my sister married a homeless man who is now in prison for molesting little girls.
Oh,
And that was just a lot to deal with. And I was just going through I was messing up in the schools. I was just not thinking straight, and I was just so depressed. And I just had one of those epiphanies one day when I was reading stories to my students and doing all the little voices for the characters, and they're all laughing and having fun. They're like, let's keep going." I'm like, "No, we got to get the math now." And it kind of struck me. It's like, man, I am getting more fulfillment out of entertaining my students rather than teaching them. I'm
yeah.
like, this is what I really want to do with my life. I want to entertain people. This is what I'm meant to do. And I talked to my dad that night, and I thought he was going to be totally against this. Because he's a NASA engineer, very practical, pragmatic man, and he's like, "No, your mom and I always thought you should be an actor, but we didn't want to tell you what to do with your life. We want you to figure things out for yourself and live your own life." And he's like, "Just finish up your degree. You only got one semester left, so finish that up, and then because you'll have something to fall back on just in case. You'll have that security blanket. But then go off and do what you want to do." And that's what I did. And I finished up my degree and moved up to New York City and spent 13 years waiting tables and doing odd jobs here or there, and you know just kept on building my resume as I went along. And one day the audition for Terrifier came up. I went in and auditioned and knocked it out of the park, and
I
the rest
need
is
to
history.
I need to bring something up. The fact that one thing that stood out to me was the fact that when things were going haywire at that play,
Hmm.
you weren't nervous at all. You were comfortable enough to step up and with your Mickey Mouse voice and entertain people. Uh, you have a sense of control.
Yes.
Yeah. And it takes a lot to do that, you know? But a couple of things I want to bring up I have in common with you. And number one, I was brought up in the church, and
Hmm.
I still read my Bible. I just don't go to church, but I still read my Bible,
Right.
you know, and I still believe. I just don't believe in a lot of stuff going on in the church these days.
Yeah. Which I can totally understand and relate to. I can totally
Yep,
understand it.
yep. And another thing too, I was never suicidal, but I struggled deeply with depression growing up.
Mhm.
And I gotta tell you, and I don't want to preach, but I gotta say, God has gifted you with a tremendous talent. And you definitely proved it that night when things were going wrong with that, because that could have went way wrong, and you
Oh yeah.
spun it somewhere else. That's an applause. Not everybody can do that.
Thank you.
So,
It was just it's instinctual with me. It's just
yep,
like I've always kind of had that knack, even back when I was doing like the children's plays at my in my church. It was just like I just don't believe in just stopping. And it's like, well, okay, if you're in character, you should just keep on going with the moment, and that's what I did. And I've done that several times. I mean, that's even how I got my role in Terrifier. It was an improvisational audition I had to do. It is they just threw something at me and they're like, go,
well,
and I just
God,
went with my instincts.
well, God doesn't want you to stop either. I'll say that right now. He's gifted you, man. He's gifted
Thank
you.
you.
Yep.
I can't catch a ball to save my life though.
Neither can I.
I always hate it
But
when people throw something to me. I'm like, oh God, no.
wow, Terrifier though. It's interesting with Terrifier because you've got your it clown, and you've
Hmm.
got the killer clowns from outer space, and you've got the clown doll from Poltergeist. Clowns it's strange because they're supposed to be something that cheers people up, and
Hmm.
like even in wrestling, there was Doink the Clown, and he started
Yes.
off as evil, and it's like clowns have this very big dark side, and it would be easy to be overshadowed by the It movies, and yet
Right.
Terrifier, I'm gonna tell you, it was terrifying. How long did it take you in the makeup chair for that?
That took usually at least 3 hours. So, most of the time more, because it takes about 3 hours just to put the base makeup on, the clean art as I call them.
Mm-hmm.
But then most of the film I've got blood all over me too, and it keeps on developing more and more blood as both films keep going. He doesn't wash. So
Well, you'd save that if you would stop killing people.
oh, I know. you know but it's hard because you have to do all that blood continuity with all the splatters and try to make
Yep.
them sync up from because we don't film in order, so we're always having to take
No.
all these photos or reference photos just to try to match up the splatter. And then if I get some battle damage or something like that, then we have to sculpt all the battle damage. Like when I had my eye poked out, that takes even more time to do. So I would say between like 3 to 4, sometimes 4.5 hours. And sometimes that wasn't even one full sweep. Sometimes Damien did a little bit of my makeup, then he had to walk away and direct a scene, and then come back and do my. I remember this happened more on part one than part two. Part two is like he would get in there early and he'd just do my makeup, but part one he would have to go do other things, and so sometimes I would be in the chair for about 8 hours before I was even on set. So it's
Did you
just
do
like,
Mickey
yeah.
Mouse? Did you do the Mickey Mouse voice whenever you were making
Oh yeah, I did all kinds of voices. It's probably got to be the weirdest thing for my co-stars and the crew to see me walking around with all that blood on and all that makeup, and then I just start doing some kind of cartoon voice. It's like,
What cartoon voices do you know?
oh, I do over 200 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Okay.
that's
What's your
my
favorites?
special skill. Oh God, that's like trying to choose all my babies and which one's my favorite. I mean, I do, of course, Mickey. Goofy was my very first one I did in first
Oh,
grade.
do Goofy as Art the Clown.
Yup. Well, I'm gonna come over here and kill you. Yup. Gosh, you're sure bleeding a lot there. Yup.
Goofy's one of my favorites, you know.
Oh yeah, he's great. But then, of course, like I kind of even look at his art is kind of like this. He's kind of like Bugs Bunny-ish, and I've had those moments on set where I just goof around. I'm like, you stinker. What's up, Doc? What a maroon. It's just but like one of my favorites too, I would say was Krang from Ninja Turtles. I always just thought that was such a cool voice. It's so different. The Shredder, you fool! You let those turtles escape. Oh. It's just that it's such a weird voice. And then when I was in college, growing up down south, everybody was big Andy Griffin fans, and so I did Don Knotts a lot, and so everybody's like,
Oh yeah.
Dave, do Barney Fife. Well, Andy, here in my little town of Mayberry, sometimes you just gotta nip it in the bud. Yep, nip it in the bud.
Oh my goodness, man. Those are spot on.
Thank you.
Holy cow. I grew up watching Don Knotts. That was
Oh, he
spot
was
on.
fantastic. It makes me sad when like so many of the younger generation have no idea who Don Knotts was. I'm
I
like,
remember
oh my
Three's
God.
Company.
Three's Company. You had the Apple Dumpling Gang. Of course, you
Ghost
had
Ghost Mr.
Berry,
Chicken.
Ghost Mickey. Oh, all of that is just brilliant. It's just brilliant comedy. He's such a great comedian.
They had somebody I was watching the other night on YouTube who did a spot on Randy Macho Man Savage. And oh my,
Oh yeah, that's a hard one to do because it's just right there in your
oh,
voice.
yeah,
Sauce ready. It's just like going.
yep, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But oh boy, those were spot on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So when you were Art the Clown, did you have any pre-notions of what you wanted to bring to the character?
I did because I mean, first of all, I was already a fan of the character because I had seen
Hmm.
All Hallows Eve even before I knew about the auditions for Terrifier. I liked him. I was like, this is a cool character. He's kind of like an evil Mr. Bean, and I'd always wanted a chance to play a Mr. Bean like character because I love silent comedy.
Hmm.
And that's what I was like. Well, gosh, this opportunity came along. I was like, I got to take this. And when I look back at Mike Gianelli, who was original art, I looked at his performance. He wasn't as big into like the physical comedy. That he doesn't have the background that like I do, and that's what I wanted to add more to. It was more the clowning aspect of art, like the little winks he kind of has to the audience after each kill. It's like he does something horrible, and then he kind of does something funny along with it, which is kind of like this is very morbid. It makes you question why you're laughing, and that's something I really want to add more to him was the physical nature, especially since he's able to even though he doesn't speak, he's able to emote so much with his face because he's just not wearing a mask like Freddy. I'm not Freddy, but Jason or Mike Myers.
Hmm.
So I had that, the makeup lent itself easily to that, and with a clown, of course, he would have more exaggerated expressions, and so you can do so much acting with that. And one of those things I really like doing is a lot of eye acting. That's a lot of fun stuff I can do there. It's just like,
Yeah, there's a scene where you're sitting in the pizzeria, when you do this, and you're looking at the two girls. There's a lot of expression in your eyes, and it's a look that nobody wants in their direction.
no, 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 no.
I do have to bring bring up um, Jenna Carnell.
Yes, 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 yes.
She is cute. Gotta
Oh,
say,
she's just wonderful.
she reminded me of Nev Campbell a
Oh
lot.
yeah. We were even saying that on set, like when she came in with her hair like that. We're like, oh my God, you look so much like Nev Campbell.
Yep. I like the scene where you bring her the little plastic ring, and you put it on her finger. Um, I'm like, yeah, I can get why he would do that.
Oh yeah. It was that was that whole entire scene is like my favorite scene in the movie because it shows. So I mean, we don't have we don't explain art. We don't you don't have all this exposition of who he is or anything like that. But that entire scene shows you everything you need to know about the character. It sums him up perfectly. You see every aspect of his character in that scene, and you know what he's about because of that one scene.
Mm-hmm.
Sets
Well,
him up perfectly for the film.
there's a scene where she's bound and gagged to a chair, and I was
Mhm.
wondering, well, she was like that. Did you do the voices?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. In between takes, just to help her keep her sanity, because it was very cold in there, and that was an insane scene. And we actually did different takes on that too, with all the different toys I was pulling out of my bag. I mean, we used more of the serious, scary takes, but I also took some comedic takes too. That I remember one specifically was this. There was a pole that had this big, huge, like metal spike on the end of it, so it kind of looked like a golf club. And so I started doing the whole Johnny Carson bit with the golf club with that to her kneecap. Like I was gonna hit her kneecap, and I just stopped myself. I'm like, "Oh God, yeah, yeah." It just messing around with it. We're doing different takes, and the crew was laughing, and our producer's like, I love these, but these are probably too funny for the moment." And that's what we just like. Yeah, well, at least we have options.
She
And
couldn't
so,
laugh because her mouth was taped.
oh yeah, yeah. But that was just one of those fun scenes where I was just playing with all the different things that it was just something I was improvising a lot with. I just took different things out, and I would just do different things with them. It's kind of like that. Like, if you ever saw the Inside the Actor Studio episode where they had Robin Williams on, and
Oh
they
yeah.
just gave him a pink scarf, and he sat there just doing all these different things with a pink scarf. That's kind of what I was doing with everything in that bag, just coming up with different things to do with them. It was fun. And most of it doesn't even get seen. It's just, but I just like to give options, as many
You
options
see,
as
she can't
possible.
move like that, so it's like, take her boot off and tickle her toes with
Oh yeah.
leather. Like
Oh yeah.
I could see you just tormenting her between
I,
tapes.
I I would, but also it's like Jen is one of these people, like if you do something to her, she's a badass in real life, and she could definitely kick my butt. And I'm like, I don't want to do something where it's gonna come back and get me. I'm like, I don't want to piss her off.
You didn't go up and like under her chin, go like the.
Yeah, I think I might have done that once or twice, just because she even stayed in there in between takes and everything. She just wants to stay because it helped her keep in character. So she was actually just taped down to that chair for hours. I'm like, oh my God, insane. But it's what worked best for her. So it's like, okay, cool.
I thought she was going to be the heroine of the film because
Oh
she
yeah,
went a good way through it. They pulled a psycho right there, is what they
exactly. That's
did. Yeah.
exactly what we did. That was our homage to Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of homages to different horror films in Terrifier. It's like I look at this film as a big love letter to horror films, especially slashers. I mean, even
Yeah.
Art is a huge love letter to every single slasher villain that came before him, because there's little bits and pieces of every horror villain in Art. He's
Mm-hmm.
all of them. He's like a huge just mishmash of all of them, and that's what I love about him. I kind of look at him as the ultimate horror fanboy.
Yeah, except for Chucky. Chucky came in the form of the doll.
Yeah, but he still has that, that tenacity that Chucky has too,
Hmm.
where and he has that little bit of a biting wit to him as well. It's just like, yeah, he and Freddy both. There's that biting wit, especially with Chucky. And it's like I love in the first film especially. It's like every time you think Chucky's down, he's not down. It's not like most films are like they go down once and they come back up, and you're like, oh well, you expect him to come back up once, but not like 4 or 5 times. Like, my God, will this guy freaking die? That's
Yeah.
I love that part. And that's kind of how Art is. Like, my God, he takes a licking but keeps on ticking.
Well, Catherine, is it Corcoran?
Corcoran.
Corcoran. Okay, I'm
Hmm.
sorry. I never seen that last name before. She, of course, had the misfortune of playing Dawn, and of course,
Yeah.
everybody talks about that upside down scene.
Oh
I
yes.
find that scene very, very, very difficult to watch.
As you should. I would wonder about people if they were like, "Oh, this is fine."
Oh my goodness. I'm like, please keep cutting back to Jenna.
Yeah.
I mean, she might be in a bad spot, but at least she's not being cut in half.
Oh boy.
Talk talk about first working with her. What was of course she had to get completely nude for that.
Yeah.
What was uh, her response to that? Was she down with that? Was it uncomfortable?
She was totally down for it, and that's the thing Damien had, you know, casting that role was finding someone that was willing to do that.
Mhm.
But she was totally gung ho for it because she had the foresight to realize what that scene was going to become one day. She's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is going to be uncomfortable to film, but it's going to be worth it because it's going to be what everybody remembers.
Do you think she got that selfie pic with art on the Facebook profile before that happened?
Yeah, I would hope so. Oh my gosh, but yeah, she was total trooper for that because that was not fun to do because for one, she's hanging upside down, and the human body should not be upside down for more than 45 seconds at a time without
It's
sustaining
interesting you
damage.
mentioned that because I've interviewed Russell Todd, who
Mm.
was in Friday the 13th Part 2, and he was the guy that was hanging
Yeah,
upside down. And he said that between takes, what the people would have to kind of like hold him up, so,
yeah.
you know, and was it the same way with her?
It was. We would only shoot for 30 seconds at a time and then swing her. We had a whole thing rigged up where we could swing her back up and let her rest.
Hmm.
And that was hard because we only had those 30 seconds, not just 30 seconds of just action. It was like 30 seconds where we swing her down, everybody gets in place and go. So that was very stressful. So really, I maybe had like 15 seconds at a pop just to do stuff with her before we had to swing her back up. And also, it was so cold in that room because we had no heat in there, and it was the middle of January, New York, and it was about 20 degrees that night. So she's already in that state, but then she's got the blood on her, which makes it even colder. And I'm like, oh my god! And this is hours that she's having to do this, and it was tough, but she was such a chirper during all of it. The only time she ever complained was when some blood went into her eye or her nose, which is, yeah, I would complain too, because like, ow, 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 that blood's kind of stings because it's got a little bit of soap in it as well.
Hmm.
So it's oof, it's not fun when that blood gets in your eye. So I was like, oh god, yeah, complain away, girl. It
So
was like, yeah, she was total trooper for that and so professional too. And I consider her the MVP of the film. She went above and beyond for that role.
I'm thinking of nasty things, right now. Like, well, so you mentioned it was cold in that room, so you didn't like go on over with like an ice cream over to Jenna and like sit on her lap and say, "You want a lick? You want a lick? You want some cold ice cream?"
No, no. Well, oddly enough, we didn't film the stuff with Dawn and Terror together. Those were actually filmed in two separate locations in two different states, months apart from each other, because we had to film all of Jenna's stuff first because she had to go film the Bye Bye Man. Like two
Okay.
days later, she was on set for Bye Bye Man. So we had to film all of her stuff first, and then we had a change of venue, and we filmed all the stuff with Catherine a few months later.
Did you say bye bye to her?
Yeah. Bye
Oh man.
bye.
Yeah, talk about the makeup job.
Bifurcation too. I just thought of that bifurcation too.
Talk about the makeup job, the makeup process on Catherine, when because that is that takes you right back to Tom Savini when you see
Oh
that,
yeah, yeah. Well, it
how
was actually pretty simple for Catherine because we made a body double of her out of a dummy, and oddly enough, that was another thing that was kind of hard for her because they didn't put enough releasing agent on her. They actually had put too much on, and they had to take a lot of it off because it would ruin the mold that they were making, and they took off too much, so she got stuck in this full body mold, and they had to slowly pry her out of it. So it's like the ultimate Brazilian that you could ever get. And so we had that full body that we I was actually able to take a hacksaw to a real hacksaw and actually just saw right through it, which was a lot of fun. So with Catherine, it was more like they just had to trickle blood down her and stuff like that, and then we had a fake hacksaw so we could make it look like it had gotten in her chest area, so it looked like it was stuck there.
yeah, that's very hard to watch.
Oh yeah. It was hard to do too because I had to keep it like when she's moving around, I had to keep it still pressed into her so you wouldn't notice it was a fake one, so it still looked like it was actually in her.
Hmm.
So it's those smart little tricks of the trade. It's like a lot of good editing and different camera angles and stuff like that can do wonders. But it's funny they mentioned Savini because that's Damien's influence. It's like
Yeah, I could
Damien
tell.
learned so much. He loves Savini. That is
Hmm.
his like idol, and he learned from watching him. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We got to talk about, again, I'm probably going to get these names wrong, so forgive me.
Mhm.
Samantha Scavity?
Scafidi.
Scavity, okay. And of course, she had a key role in the movie as
Oh yes.
well. Now, talk about the makeup job done on her face.
Oh, that poor thing. Like the day that she filmed that scene,
Hmm.
she had just gotten back from being in I think South America somewhere, and he'd gotten this horrible cold or virus or something like that,
Hmm.
and she had a fever that day that she filmed. So she was sweating profusely and was so sick, and so she was actually sweating through the makeup.
Oh,
So they had to keep on reapplying it. And it was just a horrible day for her. But I mean, I know how bad the makeup was for me, but especially when I had the makeup effect where I had my eye gouged out because that
hmm.
was my good eye. I can't really see too well on my left eye over here, and of course that's the one that I had to look through. So I'm like, great, great. Why did they have to gouge out my right eye? But that was a nuisance for me being on set several hours and not being able to see anything. Everything was like a big blur, and so for Samantha, she had her whole entire face covered up like that, so she couldn't see anything like that for hours, and it was
Hmm.
hard for her to breathe and everything like that. So, oh, not fun, not fun.
And then, of course, Punya, Mo, I'm sorry, the cat lady. My
Yes.
apologies about these names, and
Oh yeah.
I don't want
Oh,
to
Puya
disrespect.
understand. She's like, oh yeah, I got a hard name.
I would never want to disrespect anybody,
Yeah.
but she had an interesting role in the movie as well. The cat
Yes.
lady.
Oh yeah, I love that character.
Hmm.
It's a character I wish we could have actually fleshed out more. Same with Victoria that Samantha played. Those are two characters I wish we
Hmm.
could have actually taken more time with and expanded more on them. So I think there's a lot of interesting things, because the Catwoman's not just a crazy woman; she's very perceptive, I would say,
Well, there's a
art.
moment where she's like cradling him, and
Hmm.
it's like it kind of takes you somewhere, and I almost wonder if the girls weren't so nasty to him, whether he was looking for some kind of connection with Jenna's Carrot Tara character.
Yeah. No, no,
No?
no. He just loves to mess around with people. Art's one of these guys who can figure out what makes people tick and
Okay.
how to manipulate. He understands people's weaknesses in a lot of ways, and
Okay.
that's what he was doing, especially with the cat lady. He saw she's very maternal.
Hmm.
Like something happened. It's like I think there's got to be something going on with her in her past that made her that way, especially about her attachment to that baby doll that she calls Emily. I think there's something interesting there that I wish we could have explored. But who knows? Maybe in a future film. Who knows? but it's just like he noticed that about her, and he's like, that's what I'm going to do. I am going to become this like sympathetic. Oh, make her want to mother me, brings her in, messes with her mind, makes her an easy kill, and then boom, gets her.
Did you like using the cat o' nine tails? Speaking of weapons, that was an interesting weapon you don't see in a lot of films.
It's a very cool weapon too, because there's something that most people don't realize about it, and we're actually going to explore that more in the comic book that's going to come out.
I
Is
mean, the
that
Passion of the Christ
yeah?
certainly had a scene with it.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
like to think the cat of nine tails is Art's main weapon because it's a special weapon,
Yeah.
and because I mean, first of all, it's got all these blades on it, that's just messed up. It's like syringes and knives and scissors, anything just sharp and pointy. The idea of, because Cat of Nine Tails without those will do major damage to you, but you have all that kind of stuff in there. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. But what's even more special about it is all the strands on it. Those are not ropes. That's human hair from his victims.
Ooh.
That he has braided into the different strands on there.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think
Doing
is
like a
very
Leatherface
interesting.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's something I wish we could have actually pointed out more. It's like, yeah, that's a very messed up thing. So it's like, he kills another person. That's another strand on the chain. So it's like,
I know sad we had a couple of exterminators that really could have had the night off.
oh yeah, oh poor guys, they got exterminated.
They got exterminated, one of them, of course, was on the headphones and couldn't hear what was going on. And when they countered the cat lady, he thought she
Yeah.
was just nuts. So
I got to point out that when he was on his headphones, the song that you hear is from my cousin's band, Thanks.
okay.
Yeah. So you also hear her music in the pizza shop scene.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fun little fact there. Unfortunately, they're no longer together as a band because they all got married and moved on with their lives. But it's like they used to tour all over the U.S. and Europe and stuff like that. So that's a little fun little thing there. She goes by Jimi Hendrix, Jimi, but her real name's Elizabeth. So yeah.
So are you still and like I know Damien is working with you in Terrifier too, but are you still in touch with any of the cast from this movie?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We recently just did a Wizard World event
Ah.
together, which was a lot of fun. But we all stay in contact on Facebook and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah, Jenna's somebody I got to get on here at some point.
yeah. But you wanted to ask something about the exterminators, though. Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to go back to that. I don't want to leave those guys out. So
Yeah.
so they're crazy guys.
Well, you have Matt McAllister as Mike the Exterminator,
Mhm.
and who's he?
Mike Levy.
Oh, Mike Levy. Okay, now I'm seeing it here. Will the Exterminator. I got the Wikipedia on here. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm seeing Will the Exterminator. Yeah, that poor Michael just had to show up.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's fine too, because that scene wasn't originally in the original cut of the film. We ended up adding that after our first rough cut because we did a screening at Telluride and people loved it and they kind of wanted another kill in it. Especially one of our producers wanted one more kill. And he had an idea for a fun decapitation. So we're like, hey, well, let's put the guy that you have him talking to on the phone at one point into the film, and we'll kill him too.
Okay.
And it's a funny thing too because Mike Levy, it's a fun little Easter egg because he and his brother and their other partner Steve DeSala, they Jason and Steve play the two cops at the end of the film. But
Okay.
their production company, Fuzz on the Lens Film, which I'm doing another movie with right now called Stream. But they are the guys that started the whole scary clown craze back in like 2014-ish. They did it before Wrinkles the Clown was doing it, where he was known as the Staten Island Clown, was standing out in public dressed as a scary clown and just freaking people out. That was Mike. And so I like to think I end up killing the Staten Island Clown in this film. So it's a fun little Easter egg there.
Well, it's funny because when I reached out to you, I was under the impression that the film was on its fifth anniversary,
Yeah,
but I guess it was released technically like it was released at the uh, in a film festival in 2016, but was released
correct.
wide in 2018.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we did that first draft of it. We did that at the Telluride Horror Festival that
Hmm.
year in 2016, and they're like, okay, let's add a little bit more. So we added that the scene with the decapitation, and we also added the morgue scene
Okay.
because people they wanted more art, and we're like, well, we got to add something in here to give people hope for a sequel. So let's, because originally it just ended with a Victoria, the reveal that she was the girl at the beginning of the movie, and you didn't see it. You just thought Art was dead, and that was it. So like, well, we gotta, hint to the sequel then. So we added the morgue.
It's interesting because it wasn't until 2017 that I started doing the conventions. One of my guests invited me to assist her at one, and it's interesting because Terrifier has only been around for a short time, and yet Art the Clown is somebody that a lot of fans are dressing up as at these events.
Yeah,
That must be a major compliment to you.
it's pretty cool because I love cosplay. I've done cosplay as well as Joker in the past. So it's
Mhm.
just like I know you don't do cosplay of characters unless you love that character so much. So it's like it was our very first convention that Damien and I went to shortly after we released. It was that June after we released, or yeah, June. And we did Mad Monster Party in Arizona that year in 2018. And we had some people there at that convention that came dressed as Art, and we were just like, whoa, because we had not even released on Netflix at this point, so we were still very underground. And just to see people showing up at that convention dressed as Art, and vendors there that already had things, of Art that they were wanting to sell, and that was like, this is amazing. We did not expect that.
Yeah. What's the most interesting thing you've ever been asked to sign?
So far it's been someone wanted me to sign their leg and they wanted to get it tattooed. So that was kind of
I hear
cool.
that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the most interesting thing so far. But I've signed some saw blades and like knives and horns and
Hmm.
stuff like that too. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, it's been like this short time for it. Is it Sean Clark is the one that books you for conventions?
No, I go with a Bob Catalano, but
Okay.
I know Sean. Yeah, Sean's a good
Yeah,
guy.
I had Sean on here back in January. I
Yeah.
needed to hear his story.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sean's fun. And like, Bob grabbed me up before I even met Sean, so I was just like, oh well, yeah. But
Hmm.
Sean's a friend. Sean's definitely a friend and stuff
Oh,
like
he's
that.
great.
Yeah.
He's great.
So yeah, some of our Terrifier 2 people are with him. So
Okay.
yeah. So once the movie releases, he's gonna get them out on the road and everything like that. So
Well, Terrifier 2, we'll skirt that, but we do have to discuss it. Now, you're working with Damien again,
hmm
and you must have a lot of trust in that guy because he directs and he does the makeup as well.
yeah.
Talk about your relationship with him.
Oh, it's great. It's a great relationship. I'm like, we're like basically like brothers now.
Hmm.
It's a relationship I'm lucky to have as an actor. A lot of actors don't have that kind of relationship with their director, where it's just like, but we've, and I think we have that relationship because we spent so many hours just in the makeup chair alone. So we've really gotten to know each other that way. But we're so much alike. We have the same interests,
Hmm.
where we're both big, huge geeks. So we just instantly clicked. We're like, this is great. But as you know, actor director relationship is a great relationship too, because he's one of these directors that's very receptive to outside input and like new ideas and trying things and experimenting. It's not. I've had directors where it's their way or the highway,
Hmm.
where they micro direct every little thing you do, so you don't even feel like it's your own creation. You're just like, I'm just a puppet over here for you. I have no input whatsoever. Damien's one of these people. He has his ideas. He knows
Hmm.
exactly, and he knows exactly what he wants for certain things, especially the scary stuff. Damien knows what is scary. I've had moments on set where I'm like, I don't understand why this is scary, like the scene where I'm just standing there frozen. I'm doing that little thing. I did not understand that at first. I'm like, what the fuck is this I'm doing here? I'm like, how is this scary? He's like, trust me on this. Trust me. When you see it edited and everything, it's gonna, the music and everything. Trust me. And I did. And I'm like, oh, I totally see what you're going for now. So
Yep.
that's one of those things. Like, I know to trust Damien, uh, especially when it comes to scary. And it's like with comedy, comedy's my thing. The scary's his thing. And so we're like peanut butter and chocolate. We work really well together that way. We just kind of, experiment. And we have moments on set where like we'll try his version and he's like, okay, David, now I want you to play with it. Do your thing with this scene now and see what we come up with.
Oh, that's
And
great.
yeah, and he, especially for part two, because when he wrote part one, he didn't know what I was like. He
Mhm.
didn't even know me at the time when he wrote part one. And there were just moments on set where like, okay, well, he's like, I see what you're doing now. I want you to experiment, and so he let me do that. Now, part two, he specifically wrote certain scenes in the movie where he basically just said, okay, here's the premise of the scene, and Art just does his thing, or David does his thing,
Mhm.
and he's like, this is going to be one of those things that we're just going to figure out when we get to set, just see what the environment is around you and what you have to play with. And I love that, because there are especially two things I can really think of off the top of my head in the movie where I was so excited about filming him, because it's like, this is where I get to really just play. And that's what I did. And I just would walk in there and I saw what all the props were, what all I had to work with, and I just came up with a routine. And I'm like, okay, this is my idea, and I showed the routine to him. He's like, cool, let's shoot it. And it's great. It's great having that. But he's like that with everybody on set, not just me. It's like, if other people have an idea, he's like, okay, let's try that out. And he's very collaborative, and that's great, because our crew is so small. So it's like, it's not just him. It's like everybody has some kind of input on what we're doing. It's not just me and him, or the other actors and him. It's the crew. They have ideas like, hey, let's try it, because we all want this to succeed. So like, yeah, we're all receptive to new ideas and seeing what works, and it's great. I think it's a great environment to work in, because you have that opportunity. And I think it's because of that we've also, as a whole entire unit, have bonded well together, and it's served a lot of beneficial ways too, because a lot of the places we were filming, especially in part two, were not the most fun areas to film in, especially in winter. And so it would be cold and miserable, and we're on hour 15 or 16, and we're tired. We've been doing this for multiple days. And we sometimes, we're like a family. Sometimes we get a little bit snippy because we're tired. But then we have someone like, especially Jason Levy, he would just come in and just do something funny. Like one night, we are all tired, and he just busted into the room wearing Sienna's Valkyrie costume, and we're just like, oh my god. It's like I'm seeing way too much of you right now than I don't want to ever see, but this is hysterical. And it's that kind of, so it keeps things light and fun. And I think and I think it will translate very well on screen, that we were all having fun with each other.
Okay. One thing I do know with Terrifier 2, you got a couple of other horror film alumni in there. You got
Mhm.
Felissa Rose of Sleepaway Camp, who's somebody who
Yes.
can play crazy,
Oh
and
yeah.
Tamara Glenn of Halloween 5.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Talk about
They're
working with them.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't really get to work with either one of them. It's just like, because they were just in for like one or two scenes, so they're not big, huge characters in the film. I don't want people to get that excited over that. They were just, they're friends of the film, and we're like, we just want you to be part of this somehow. So we wrote some fun little roles for them to play in it, and they came and filmed. I was actually there when Tamara filmed her scene, so I was able to see all that, and it was fun just hanging out with her on set. Now, Felicia, unfortunately, I'm not in that scene with her, but from what I understand, everybody else had a blast with them, because I love Felicia anyway. We do so many conventions together, so she's family to us, and I've seen the scene too, and she's a hoot. She's absolutely hysterical in it. It's just fantastic.
I'm involved in some films that she's involved with too. Like I've done some Indiegogos
Hmm.
that she is part of. So I've never had her on the show yet, but I'm
Yeah.
negotiating little by little. Sandy Johnson put me in touch with her from
Oh yeah.
Halloween. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, you should definitely have her on. She's so much fun. Both of those ladies are just wonderful ladies. I absolutely adore both of them.
Oh,
So
I've had Sandy on twice.
yeah.
I love Sandy. Yeah. One person I gotta bring up now, I've never heard of this woman, but seeing the pictures of her on here, I'm
Hmm.
like, she looks like a badass. Lauren Lavera.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to fall in love with her. It's
Mm-hmm.
just She's amazing. It is like she's such a badass. It's just, oh my god, she's perfect. She is so perfect for the role. It's like we actually made the poster for Terrifier 2 that
Mm-hmm.
has been released before we even cast her. Like the first day she showed up on set and she's wearing that costume. When I saw her wearing the costume, she was doing almost the pose from the poster. And I was like, oh my God, she's the poster. This is like, wow, this is amazing. But she is so good in this. I think she just amps things up to a new level. It's just, her character is actually a character that Damien had in his mind even before he created art. He created this character in his mind. It's a great final girl. It's just she's very Ellen Ripley, Sarah Connor type of character, and that's what I love about her. And you see her go on a great journey during this film too. She's not one of those like just perfect, cute little damsels in distress, and she's not a total innocent girl either. She's someone that has gone through some crap in their life. She's dealing with a lot, and you see that you see that with the family dynamic in this movie. It's not one of those picture perfect families that you usually see in these type of films. There's a lot of drama with them, and that's what I love about it. It gives her more, it makes her more relatable and more real in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of like horror fans will really relate with her character too, because she's a cosplayer.
Yeah, I
And
like that outfit that
yeah,
you got on.
yeah, yeah, it's an outfit her character creates, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool. And I don't think that's really spoiling anything, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just like it. But it's her character. It's because that's one thing Damien and I talked about after Terrifier 1 was like, okay, so yeah, we have Victoria who lives, but we need someone that's able to go toe to toe with this character. The Joker needs his Batman. You got to have that one character that can actually give that is a threat in a way to the antagonist. There's got to
Mm-hmm.
be that balance there. You got to have that other side of the coin, and I think this character is that balance. But you see her go through this journey to become that character in this movie, and it's great. And it's not just her; it's everybody. Oh my god, the whole entire cast is just fantastic. It's just like it's one thing for me to read the scenes and imagine it in my head, but then when I saw what the actors brought to the scenes, especially this one character that's in the movie, is like the way he was written. I was like, oh, he just seems like you're this one type of character, but then like he just brought a new depth to it that I did not expect. I was like, oh my god, he's hysterical, but he's also just this really complex character, and I'm like, this is really cool, and I'm like, they're all like that. Like her little brother, I just love his character in this movie too. He's a very relatable character. It's like I saw like Damien and I both were like, yeah, we see so much of ourselves when we're that age in this character. Like this is cool, and that relationship between the two of them is a really good relationship. So it's like that's what I'm very happy about this film. Is like that's one thing Damien was upset about with Terrifier 1. He wasn't able to really develop characters the way he wanted to. He wishes he could have developed them more. And with this one, he really does have the chance to develop these characters. It's not just Art's movie; it is Sienna's movie equally. And it's not to say like Art's only going to be it for like 15 minutes. Oh no, he's front and center. Don't get me wrong, but so is she. And I think that's a really cool thing. It's oh, I can't. I wish I could say more.
Do I dare ask if there's going to be a Terrifier 3? Are we
we
going to have
want
a. Huh?
we want to make a third one. We definitely have ideas for a third.
We want a franchise.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, so do we. But we also, I think there's so much more to tell about this character.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we still have so much more to flesh out with him, explore, and the world around him too. So it's just, oh yeah. But we also don't want to get too campy with it. We don't want to
No.
go, Jason X type of.
Yeah, you're right. That was the
Yeah,
worst of the Friday the 13th,
yeah. Granted though, it had some really creative kills in that movie.
Yeah.
It's like I
But
love the liquid nitrogen.
yeah, that was a
That
great
was
kill.
that was cool. But it's like the premise was like, come on. But the kills were cool in that. But
It
but
was
we
no,
don't want to.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was no Jason Lives or the final chapter.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
that we don't want we want to keep art grounded, and we don't
Hmm.
want to just go on to pure camp, jumping the shark type of stuff. It's like, because you even saw that with the Nightmare movies later on.
Yes.
They got too campy.
Yeah.
I always think like part three was where it really peaked. It really found its stride. That was like, okay, this is what it should be. And then just got after
Oh,
around
Freddy's
part
Dead
five.
was awful.
Yeah, yeah, just like, oh no, New Nightmare though I liked. I thought
New
that was,
Nightmare wasn't
it was
bad.
creative. That was a very
Hmm.
creative film. But it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, but yeah, we don't want to go off in that kind of crazy territory. But then you look at something like Child's Play, which continues to evolve, which is really
Hmm.
cool. It keeps on finding new things to do with it. So I'm like, that's something I've always enjoyed about Child's Play. It's like it seems like you have three different chunks of the Chucky movies. You have the Andy story, then you have the Bride of Chucky type of story segment, the family of Chucky story. Then you have the whole cult of Chucky with Brad Dourif's Fiona Dourif's character, and those, and they all kind of, but it's a constant flow. But if we ever did anything like that with Terrifier, that's kind of the route I would hope we would go instead of just pure
So
camp.
does that mean you're not going to bring Tommy Wiseau and Neil Breen into the Terrifier films?
Oh God! You're tearing me apart, bitterly.
You mentioned the movie.
Ow!
You mentioned the movie Stream. You mentioned the movie Stream. I got that up on here. You got Felicia Rose back.
Yes.
Did you get to work with her in this one?
I can't say. I
Okay.
can't say.
Could you
But I
get
mean,
Jeffrey Combs and Daniel Roebuck? You
oh
know?
yeah. Oh my gosh. That's not all of the actors that are in this. There's so many other actors that have not been announced yet. This is like an
Okay.
Expendables version of a horror movie.
Oh.
It's been amazing being on this set. It's just like, especially with Jeffrey Combs, I'm like, I had days on set where I wasn't even filming that day, and I'm like, can I just come and watch? Because he's so good. It's just because I like to watch my betters and learn from them. That's how I learn and improve on myself, is watching people that have all this experience. And it's like going to school for me. Yeah, like just watching these actors do their thing, and plus hearing their stories is just great too. It's just like, unfortunately, I wasn't on set the days that Daniel Roebuck was on set, but I've been hearing he was just so much fun for everybody to work with. That he's got some awesome stories.
And you get the Dark Offerings here. Again, you got
Yes.
Felissa Rose back. You get Tamara
Hmm.
Glenn back. But I've also interviewed Elaine Dietz, and I'm planning to have
Yes.
her back.
Yes. Oh, she's a sweetheart.
Yeah, yeah, love her. I know who Sean C. Phillips is.
Hmm.
Yeah, but that one's in post production, so we won't squeeze you
Yes.
for too much information on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just a small part in that one. They wrote a part for me later on, and they're like, "Hey, Dave, you want to come in?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I came in and filmed for a day, and it was so much fun. I got to be on the opposite end, I guess you could say, in a lot of ways, of what I'm usually doing. So I have a new respect in, my scream queens now, because I had to do a lot of screaming. I'm like, oh, that's hard. It wears you out.
So who have you met at the conventions in terms of other performers that
Hmm.
just blew your mind that you couldn't believe you met?
Oh gosh, I would say, okay, there's so many horror legends I've met, especially yeah, like Kane Hodder and Bill Moseley and C.J. Graham and Robert England, Richard Brake. Those are great. I mean, and John Kazir. I just become friends with these guys, so that's been great.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say my top three have been, because these are all people that have, like, one of them's just a legend. So I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm meeting this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Two are people that have had major impacts on me career wise. And the first one was Alice Cooper,
Oh, love them.
because it's just Alice Cooper, and it's just like, oh wow, like my parents manager Bob also represents him, so he was doing the convention in Philly. He's like, hey Dave, Damien, you want to come down and meet Alice? We're like, yeah, sure. And we just expected to be a very quick meet and greet, like, oh hi, nice to meet you, and move on. No, they just pulled us into the green room. He's sitting there. He's like, "Hey, you're the Terrifier guys." It's like, "Hey, come sit down. Let's chat." And we ended up sitting down for about an hour. And the other celebrities like Anson Mount started joining us. And we're just sitting there just talking about not even our own works. We were just sitting there just shooting the shit about movies because Alice is a big, huge movie fan himself,
Mhm.
as we are. So we were just all geeking out together. You know, it's the most fun, casual conversation. It's like you forget you're talking to Alice Cooper. You're just
Yep.
it's just Alice over here. I'm like, this is amazing. Then afterwards, we're like, oh my god, we had like our Wayne's World
Yeah.
moment. We're like, oh my god, we just hung out with Alice Cooper. It's
It's
like this is
interesting you
amazing.
say that because Lisa Langlois from class of 1984,
Hmm.
she's been on my show twice, and she's now a great friend of mine. She,
Yes.
she invited me to assist her at the first convention I went to, and it was my first time out in New Brunswick here,
Hmm.
and it was like I couldn't say no to that, you know.
Oh, of course not.
And not only did I assist her, she showed me my Toronto and showed me how to work the subways and stuff like that. And it's just like you said about Alice Cooper, just sitting down and eating at a restaurant with her.
Yeah.
You forget that they're an actor or a singer or
Yeah.
whatnot, and you see the person and you really connect. And
Yeah.
yep. And
That's what I love. Is just that
mhm.
those moments where you can actually connect with these actors, these people that you've grown up watching and get to know them as people. That's what I love, especially about doing the conventions. And so I'll get on to number two
Mhm.
is someone that I've always looked up to as an actor because we're so much alike. He's always someone I've modeled I've like, I want my career to go this way. I love his path, and it's Doug Jones.
Okay.
And
Yep.
he was in the Bye Bye Man with Jenna, and so I was like, oh my god! When she was filming, I was like, I'm so jealous of you. So I decided, like, after Terrifier came out, I was like, I might as well reach out to Doug because I see we're going to be at a convention together, and just let him know. And he was already familiar with me because of Jenna. He's like, yes, Huggles will be had. I can't wait to meet you as well, David. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. And so there is at Mad Monster Party in North Carolina, and I was like, he had a whole line of people at his table, so I didn't want to break in line. So I just kind of stood at the side, and he looked up, and I waved at him, and he just jumped out of his chair and just comes over to me and wraps me in a hug. He's like, "Oh my God, my little puppy, how are you doing? I'm so excited to finally meet you." It's like, I've watched your work. You're just like, oh, I'm like, and I'm just like, and later he's like, "We'll talk later." I'm like, "Okay." Okay, and later on that night there was a VIP party, and it was into like I was doing an interview at the time, and Damien sends me a text. He's like, "David, get your butt here now. Doug's here, and he's looking for you." And I'm like, "What?" And so I get to the party, and Doug just pulls me aside, and we just sit down and just he's like, "I want to get to know you," and we just
Oh,
sat down for
nice.
about an hour, just chatting about whatever, just getting to know each other. It was just the coolest thing, and it was like I loved it. It was he's just such a lovely, sweet person. It's just like he's what every human being should aspire to be. It's just like, oh my, I think the world of him, both not just as an actor looking at another actor and respecting his career path and his craft, but just as a person, he's just such a wonderful person. So that was such an awesome experience, and I still corresponded with him from time to time, which is really cool. Now, number three is like he's my childhood.
Okay.
This man is my childhood. It's when I was down at Spooky Empire in Orlando, and I was in the green room getting my makeup on for my photo op. And I had mentioned to my manager, I would love to be able to meet this person, but I don't want to disrupt the lines because I know this guy's going to have huge lines the whole entire time. So if I meet him, I meet him. If I don't, I don't. I just love to, but I don't know. And so we're in there, and Damien's doing my makeup, and Bob comes in. He's like, "Hey guys, I got someone here that wants to meet you guys." We're like, "Oh, cool, come on in." We just thought it was like another fan or someone like that. And I have my eyes closed because Damien's doing the makeup on my eyes, and I just hear this, "Oh, wow!" And it's like you know that voice. It is just like in my eyes, boom, and Damien just turns around and makes this sound I've never heard come out of him, and just he makes this, huh? and it's Christopher Lloyd. It's just, and he just has the biggest smile on his face. He's like, "Oh, this is just fantastic," and I'm like, "Oh, just knowing I brought a smile to Christopher Lloyd's face just made my year." I was like, this man has brought so much joy to my life. He's in so many of my favorite films growing up.
Did you see him recently in Nobody?
Yeah. Oh no, I haven't seen Nobody yet. I hear he's great. No, I have not watched that
Yeah.
yet. But it was, and I was just able to sit down and talk to him. He's just the sweetest man, and that whole convention was surreal because like the next day I was on my lunch break in the green room, and all the other celebrities are in there. They had a big Addams Family reunion at this convention, so I'm sitting there. There's Lurch, and Pugsley, and then Henry Thomas, Elliot from E.T.
Yep.
and his brother are sitting there at the table with me. Eddie Furlong's at the table. So I'm sitting at a table of my childhood, and Christopher Lloyd's sitting right next to me, just reading a newspaper and eating his lunch. And then someone bumps into me, and I look up and hears, "Oh, I'm so sorry," because she was on her phone. She sits down next to me. It's Christina Ricci, who was like my childhood crush, and I'm just like, and I'm just in my head just going, "Stay cool, David. Just stay cool. Stay cool." Because I just felt like an imposter in that room. I felt like I don't deserve to be here. I should not be here right now. Oh my God. This is my whole entire childhood at a table right now. And I'm like,
It makes you happy you're part of
yeah.
Terrifier because look at those doors, huh?
It's amazing, but that's what
Mhm.
was so cool. We're all just sitting there just shooting the shit over lunch, and it's like I cannot believe this is happening right now.
And I bet you get big lines at these conventions.
I'm starting to. It's something I'm still not used to yet. It's
Yeah.
just a weird thing because to me I don't see myself as anything special. I'm still David, the little geek from middle school that was bullied and thrown in lockers. That's how I still have a lot of those insecurities from back in the day. And so it's weird hearing people or even seeing people, just getting so emotional when they come to meet me. They're all shaking. Some people have cried in front of me just because they were so excited to meet me. And I'm like, "Oh, don't. I'm just me. No
I
one's
was
special."
bullied growing up too. And let me
Yeah.
tell you, you're my 437th interview I've done this podcast. Tommy Wiseau, speaking of whom, was my first.
Oh, wow. I bet that was a trip.
That was something.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, I from there, Lisa Langwa invited me to my first convention, and she and I are still connected. Through Debbie Sue Voorhees, I'm a co-producer on 13 Fanboy,
Yeah.
and through Adam Marcus, I'm an associate producer on Hearts of Darkness, the making of the Final Friday. Um, and I'm a cameo in 9 James Balsamo movies, which I
Nice.
didn't even
I
have to
love
leave.
James.
I'm in 2 scenes with Eric Roberts, and I didn't even have to leave Fredericton here. Eric
Wow.
Roberts is watching me on a television.
That's insane.
Yeah, James is something.
Oh yeah. He's a character. Definitely a
He's been on
character.
my show twice. I come in contact with him through Genevieve Rossi,
Mhm.
and I was at work cleaning one night. I was doing back shift, and it was 4 a.m. I was going on my lunch, and I get this email from James, and he's asking, "Would you mind shooting your own death scene for Cool as Hell 2?" I stare at that email for like 5 minutes. I'm like,
How?
I'm not an actor. So I knew he'd be up, so I called him. We had a conversation, and he said he wanted me to do it because he said he enjoyed doing my show, which I'm like,
Hmm.
okay. I've seen James's movies. Like, the fact I'm no actor, I won't, because James is not out to make an Academy Award winning film. He's out to have
Right.
an experience.
Yeah.
So, regardless how bad I am, I'm not going to ruin his movie because it kind of goes in tone with everything else in it, you know?
Hmm.
with what James is doing, and I mean, he's got a character named Boogar. I mean, how serious do I have to be, you know?
Yeah.
But I remember watching a clip of because Linnea Quigley is in Cool as Hell too, and I've met
Yeah.
Linnea and had her on the show, but it was through her scene I figured out, okay, I know what I'm going to do with this. So my brother filmed it, and we sent it to James, and spliced into the movie, and I'm like, I've done 9 of these for him, you know. So
Wow.
yep, and so I've seen 3 of them, but it's pretty cool.
That
But
is
yeah,
awesome.
this is pretty fun. But you mentioned, I need to ask, do you have any charities you're involved in?
I've not nothing that I like officially involved in, but
Hmm.
I do donate a lot to cancer charities because of my
Hmm.
mom, and I'm about to start donating to autism charities as well because I was recently diagnosed with being on the spectrum this past
Oh,
year. So I was like, oh wow, that makes so much more sense. I
okay,
was like, I make so much more sense now. So yeah,
okay.
so yeah, so it's like, oh, that's something that's now definitely near and dear to me. So I'm like, yeah.
Well, I will bring something up because I've thrown this out to some of my other guests. And since, because I think you could probably relate to this.
Hmm.
You remember when the Ice Bucket Challenge happened?
Hmm.
Okay. After that happened, another challenge came out after we lost Robin Williams.
Hmm.
And it's called the Doubtfire Face Challenge for Suicide and Depression Awareness.
Oh.
And it involves taking a pie in the face and you nominate 3 people. I did this and I threw it out to some of my guests. Lisa Langlois did it from class of 1984. Nancy McLaughlin from Jason Lives did it in front of props from the movies.
Hmm.
James Balsamo did it. I had a couple of the Whack Packers from the Howard Stern show do it. And Sandy Johnson, she did it, and she
Hmm.
had her husband dressed up as Michael Myers to put the pie in her face. She nominated Felissa Rose, PJ Souls, and Nick Castle.
Oh,
So I'm
that's
waiting
really
to see
cool.
whether they do it. And I had a number of people from 13 Fanboy participated, and I'm trying to get some of the bigger people involved in that. And I was wondering if I could throw that out to you, and you could throw the nominations out to some of your Terrifier co-stars, especially like somebody like Jenna.
Yeah, I might be able to do something like that. Yeah, I could even talk to Damien. Maybe we could do something because I'm supposed to go in for some pickups at one point. So maybe we could do something like that while I'm in costume, or even like just be on set and with you see the costume in the background or something. That might be a fun idea.
And what I will do, and this is something I do with all my guests, what charity would you like me to make a donation to in return for this?
Actually, I mean that I think the charity you named would be a very suicide prevention. That's a very valid one to give to. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Because I've been doing that. Like with Lisa Langlois, I donated to Single Moms
Hmm.
Planet, and with Nancy McLaughlin, it was to a homeless shelter, you know, and with Sandy Johnson, it was for first responders for 9/11, families who had lost people, first responders,
Yeah.
and I should send you links to some of those Doubtfire challenges, especially though Sandy Johnson's was great. Her husband was dressed as Michael Myers. Yeah, he put fly in her face. So I've had a few people do it. Rowdy Roddy Piper's daughter Ariel, she did it. She's been on my show, and yeah, she's awesome.
Oh,
So
that's fantastic.
I've been trying to get the um, the industry involved. I
Yeah.
know Adam Marcus and his wife are going to get themselves and their whole crew to do it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah, they're because they're involved with, of course, Hearts of Darkness.
Hmm.
So I want to do. I thought I'd throw that out because you've dealt with the depression thing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
of course you address. Speaking of clowns, Ellen Udy from My Bloody Valentine, she did the challenge, but she's also a professional clown now.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she walks on
Wow.
stilts and stuff like that.
Wow.
She does that, and I threw it out to her, and she did a good one. Yep,
That's
yep.
fantastic.
I had to throw it out to her because she was because she's a clown now. But I thought I would throw that out to you, and you could nominate 3 people. Make one of the people you nominate Jenna.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would have to. I would
Yeah,
definitely have to. I think that's
yeah.
a.
I want to get her on here too. I got to tease her about that.
Oh, she's great. You would love her. She's everybody from both films. It's like anybody you can interview from the cast of both films, you would have a fun time talking. I think that's something Damien has just he has a knack for casting really good people that are easy to work with and fun to work with. We've had no egos on any of these sets. It's just been so much fun working
Yeah.
with these people.
Well, I gotta say, I feel like I hit a gold mine having you on here tonight. You
Well,
may
thank
had
you.
self-esteem issues growing up, but I'm like, I have told some people, I said, I gotta have Art the Clown on my show. I think this is a big deal, man.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's just, I like I said, I still try to wrap my head around all this. It's been a crazy journey. Sounds like there's something going on outside.
Probably Art the Clown did something.
Yeah, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. It's New York City for you. You're always hearing sirens, so it's
Do
just
you,
like
do you know where I'm located here in New Brunswick? Have you ever been out this way?
I have not yet. I have
Yep.
not. Yeah.
A lot of people don't know where I'm located here. We're like an hour ahead of you, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
Which people forget because you don't think about that one time zone that's on the continental, North America continent that's actually ahead of Eastern
Yep.
time zone.
Yep. Well, I had Roddy Piper's daughter, Ariel, on for the 3rd time this year, and she was like, "Man, I keep forgetting there's a time zone ahead, you know?"
Yeah.
And you know, but but before I let you go, we got to do we got to picture something here. Terrifier 1 and 2 just had a double screening,
Hmm.
and it's packed for both.
Yes.
And people are starting to wade out, and I'm your reporter, and I'm like, I'm seeing Goofy walk out. What does Goofy say about these films?
What the fuck was that? Gosh, that was scary. I near pissed myself. Maxie, why did you drag me to this?
Next filing out is Bugs Bunny. What does Bugs Bunny say about this?
That guy was thinking. I like his style.
And of course, Don Knox is wandering out amongst this crowd. What does Don Knox think of this?
That's all it is. He just kind of.
You know what this reminds me of? I have interviewed, actually twice I've had this guy on, Scott Diggs Underwood, who's a
Hmm.
Canadian animator, and he did 4 of the voices in Sausage Party.
Oh my gosh,
And
that
I
movie
had
is crazy.
I had him do the voices on here too. He voiced Twink,
Hmm.
Gum, Crinkle Chips, and Mr. Pizza.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And I had him
How
do
much
the
fun.
oh yeah. When I hear
Oh,
somebody
how
could
much
do
fun.
voices, I gotta have them have some fun
Oh
with it.
yeah, I do a lot of the animal sounds too. It's like I am working on this new animated series for a Sesame Workshop that's going to be on HBO Max for toddlers, and I do a lot of animal sounds on it, so it's kind of fun.
What's your favorite animal sound to do?
It seems like people love my goats.
Your
I
goats.
because I've done goats a lot on different animated series, and all I do is it's
Now,
just
when Jenna was tied to that chair, did you make goat sounds?
I don't think I did that night. No, no, that would have been interesting. She'd be like, "What are you doing, dude?"
I could just picture her sitting there, tied there, and she can't speak and she can't do nothing, and you just
Yeah.
tormenting her.
Don't worry, it's not gonna be too bad. It's like Jim Brewer's Goat Boy character from back in the day.
Jim Brewer does a great Brian Johnson from AC/DC. Ever listen to him
Oh
on
yeah.
Howard Stern?
Oh God, Jim Brewer was he was great. With I used to love his stand-up specials back in the
Howard
day.
Stern would have him do the top 5 songs, and he'd do them as Brian Johnson.
Oh my God,
He'd do like a Mariah Carey song, only with Brian Johnson's voice.
that's
And it was like,
fantastic.
it's so crazy.
Oh, he's so good. I remember like when I first moved to New York, the girl well, she was my ex-girlfriend, but we were still friends, and I went to go visit her at her place of work where she was waiting tables, and we're in there, and she's like, this guy at my table looks so familiar to me. And I turn around, I'm like, oh my God, that's Jim Brewer. And I'm
You didn't
like,
say, oh my goodness, it's Goat Boy?
that's why. Yes, I do. She's like, who? I'm like, Goat Boy. Goat Boy. She's like, who? I'm like, you don't understand. He's on SNL, and oh my God, he's great. It's
Oh,
a great
wow.
comedian. She had no clue. So I mean, she was unfazed by him, but I'm over in the corner going, "Oh my God!" This is like basically a month after I had moved here to New York, so I was like, "Oh my God, it's Jim Brewer!" Oh my God! So it's like I had not gotten used to celebrity sightings at that point. It's like
No.
I had so many my first month too. It was like my roommate at the time, my favorite one. I had two in my first month of living here. First one was I was at an audition for Fiddler on the Roof, a tour of it. And the next room to us, they were having a read through for Young Frankenstein the musical.
I love Young Frankenstein.
Oh, it's one
Oh,
of my
what a
favorites.
masterpiece.
Oh,
Mel Brooks has done a lot of great films, but
oh,
that's his best, I think.
mwah.
Hmm.
But it's they took a break, so they're all filing out of the room. So all these Broadway legends are coming out, like Kristen Chenoweth and Roger Bart and Terrence Mann. It's right before Peter Boyle passed away, so he comes out,
Hmm.
and Susan Stroman, and then Mel Brooks comes out. And he took a moment and he came up to every single one of us that was waiting to go in for our audition and came up to us and shook our hand and wished us luck on our audition. And I'm like, I couldn't talk. I'm just like, you're my comedy god.
Yep.
I'm like, this is amazing. Oh my God. Mel Brooks. I'm like, this like I said, my first month of living here in New York, and I meet Mel Brooks. I'm like, and
Yep.
then and also at that time my roommate at the time was working with an ad agency, so she used to get free tickets to Broadway shows, and she got free tickets for us like center 2 rows back for Martin Short's Fame Becomes Me, his mockumentary show that he was doing. And every week he would have like celebrity guests in the audience so he could do his Jiminy Glick bit. And we're sitting there, and we know sitting 2 rows behind us is Christopher Guest and
Oh.
and Steve Martin.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
like, oh my God, oh my God. And then he calls Steve Martin on stage with him to do Jiminy Glick. So I have Martin Short and Steve Martin on stage together doing improv, and I'm just like 10 feet away from me, and I'm just like, I cannot believe this. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to see two
Oh,
comedy
man.
greats just riff on stage like this. I was like, this is amazing. And then afterwards, my roommate always loved to meet actors after a show. So we're like, let's stay by stage door. I'm like, okay, cool. So of course, like Christopher Guest and Steve Martin come out and they just get in the cars and leave because they were just there to see a show. They weren't really there to schmooze or anything like that. They're just support Martin. Then Martin Short eventually comes out. And I have to say, I was so impressed with him because he didn't just walk out the door and, hi, thanks for coming, and leave. He took time and came up to every single person that was waiting outside and took time and talked with them for at least 5 minutes each.
Oh, wow.
And he had like Steve Martin and Christopher Guest waiting for him at a hotel to hang out with later on. Even his wife's like, honey, let's go. He's like, no, I want to talk to people. And so he came over and spent time talking to me. And, he's like, where are you? Oh, and I told him I had just moved to New York and I was to become an actor. And he was like, oh, that's fantastic. Wishing me luck with all that. And I was like, I just couldn't, like I said, this is my first month living in New York. And I'm seeing so many of these great comedians and writers and actors. I was like, this is amazing. I'm like, I love this city.
Could you imagine them dealing with Art the Clown?
Oh my God. That would be something else. I would feel bad doing anything to them. I'm like, no, I can't do it.
So I don't think anything would happen to Steve Martin. If he's
Yeah.
anything like his Nathan Johnson character from The Jerk,
Yes.
he would accidentally get out of it.
Oh yeah, just somehow. Just found a special purpose and
He hates these cans. Stay away from the cans.
I don't need anything but this. My phone. I just need my phone. That's it. And this lamp. I need this lamp and my phone.
I don't need
God, I love that movie.
other scene. I've interviewed Catelyn Jones, who played the biker woman.
Yes.
She talked about auditioning for that.
I can only imagine.
That
Oh my
was a lot
God,
of
she
fun.
was great in that.
Oh yeah.
See that Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles are my top 3 comedies of all
What about
time.
Airplane?
Airplane's up there too, but those 3 are my favorite comedies. I can watch them over and over and over and over and over and laugh just as hard every single time. They're just so well done.
Oh yes, absolutely.
well
There's so many of them. So many of them.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It was so awesome having you come on here tonight.
Yes.
It's so interesting. I know we mentioned this before the interview, but I'll mention it on here because I was talking to Scotty McCoy
Mhm.
on the phone. We were conversing, and he had mentioned that he just booked you for an interview. Like, I'm in the midst of booking him for an interview. Like, you booked us while we were on the phone with each other.
It's so funny. I love that.
Yep, and
It's
I
meant
had
to be.
well, I had to message you and tell you that you're in good hands with Scotty because I've heard especially I've heard a story from Genevieve Rossi recently, about a podcaster that was nasty to her, and
Oh yeah.
and I always like to promote people that are really good with the guest, and
Yeah.
because it a bad one can affect us, and I don't need
Oh
that.
yeah. And that's a shame because I've done, God, probably over 100 podcasts by now, and I've never had one that was bad.
Mm-hmm.
But where I was like, no, this is no. So that's just like you had that one bad apple. It's like, are you kidding me, man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I'd say 95% of them are fantastic.
Oh, I would
The
definitely
one
say that.
she mentioned to me, I'd never heard of before, so I'm like,
Yeah.
over my head. So
Yep, but still, that's a shame. It's like, why would you want to do that anyway?
well,
It's like,
she had mentioned to me because she actually called me because she wanted my advice since I was a podcaster, and she said,
mhm.
she was scheduled to do an interview, but that particular day was beach weather. And due to the pandemic, she hadn't been out in a long time.
Right.
So she asked the podcaster if it's okay if they could reschedule. And she mentioned the circumstance. And the guy's response was, "You're blowing me off to go to the beach." And I'm
Mhm.
sitting here thinking, you know what? Just reschedule. I've done it numerous times.
Yeah.
You see, because
Sometimes it's a mental health day in a lot of ways. After
yeah.
a year-long lockdown.
Yeah. I've had to reschedule people. I've actually a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago, I had to reschedule 2 people.
Yeah.
I still had them on. I
Yeah.
had no problem with it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
had to reschedule one this week because I ended up having to do a recording at the last minute
Mm-hmm.
for this animated series, and it's like
Yeah.
they're like, oh sure, so I'm doing that in 2 weeks. It's just like, yeah, sure, we'll get it. Don't worry about it. It's just like,
Yeah.
and I've had other people have to reschedule with me sometimes because like
Mhm.
something comes up. You never know. You just go with the flow.
What's the pandemic like where you are right now? Right now with us, we're in what you call the yellow phase. If we
Mhm.
can get to the green phase, we're home free,
Yeah.
I do got my first, I still got the thing on there.
Congratulations. Which
I
which
got
one did you get, by the way?
Pfizer.
Pfizer, same here.
Yeah, I've been told that one's a good one. Um, I never had any dealings with the COVID, like I
Hmm.
probably could have gone without this. In fact, I would have preferred just not bothering. But
Yeah,
the reason I got it is because I want to be able to travel to Toronto to Horrorama and possibly
yeah,
Frightmare at the Falls this fall
yeah,
and see Lisa Langlois, who I always see when I go to Toronto. And I want to be able to do that. And if I can't travel without that, then, you know, I mean, I always get my flu shot, so I'm not
yeah,
anti-vaccine. So
yeah.
so I went
Well,
and did
I
that
yeah.
Wednesday. Yeah.
I'm glad you did. I wanted, as soon as it was available to like my group here in New York City, I was boom on it that day. Like, okay, I got to schedule my appointment because I was like, I wanted to get this done now so I feel safe, so I can go back out and go on, back out to conventions, just not worry. It's for peace of mind in a lot of ways too.
Did you give Jenna hers? I mean, you do have
No.
you do have practice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh no, that's the funny thing. It's like, yeah, I call it. I got my Terrifizer.
Your Terrifizer?
Yeah,
That's great. Your
yeah,
Terrifizer. Are you gonna give Jenna a Terrifizer?
yeah. I should. I really should.
I mean, she had her first shot.
Yeah, yeah. She should be good.
Bring her back for part two for her second shot.
Yeah, you know, why not? Why not? But as for how it is here, it's pretty good now. It's they just ended the mask mandate here in the state last week.
Mm-hmm.
So, but people are still going around wearing masks just because it's just, it makes people feel better. It's just playing it safe, especially if they're not totally vaccinated yet. They said, if you're fully vaccinated, you can go on without a mask now.
Actually, you
But
want
I'm
me to be
like,
frank with you? When I go on my walks at night, they're kind of nice and warm on the face.
oh yeah, yeah,
I
oh
might
yeah,
keep wearing it
oh
when it's cold out.
it was definitely nice during the winter. It was like I didn't need a scarf. I just had the mask. So I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
might just keep doing that in the winter. Just use the mask in the winter as a way to just stay warm when I go outside. Now, right now, because it's in the 80s, so when I go out and do my jogging, I don't wear the mask because it's like I don't need to, but also it gets hot. But I'm like, but I still bring my mask with me because I'm one of these. I don't have a problem if a business wants me to wear the mask inside. I'm like, okay, sure, no problem, no
Mm-hmm.
problem, because it puts other people at ease, because it's just like, yeah, it's not really a big deal, and I just want to be considerate and also you know look out for my fellow man.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, you know what? I was so happy to have you come on here tonight, and next year when you got more projects under your belt and you Terrifier 2 is out, I'd love to have you back.
Of course, yeah, because there's going to be so much more to talk about once part two comes. You can have a lot of questions.
Oh yeah. No, I'd love to have you back, and this was fantastic, and I hope to see you at a convention.
Oh, definitely.
Chris Alexander runs Horrorama,
Hmm.
and he used to work for Fangoria magazine. So
Hmm.
him and Luis Cerez from Suspect Video. So I'm gonna bring your name up to them.
Definitely, definitely.
Um, I'm hoping that and Frightmare at the Falls goes on in Toronto
Yeah.
because I would love to attend those this fall.
Oh,
So
that would be fun. I've done
yeah.
a few conventions up there in Canada,
Hmm.
and I've had a good time. And though I've been up in Edmonton and London and oh God, where was the other one? I can't remember right offhand, but it was they're all great. It was just, I love Canada.
Oh yeah.
Edmonton was cold though. It was like -30 when I was there.
Edmonton's the one that's struggling the hardest with COVID right now up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's unfortunate.
But I gotta say, when Lisa invited me to Horrorama in 2017, I got the bug, and it's like I want to do more of these. It was so much
Yes.
fun.
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. It's like, because I've done other conventions outside of horror conventions, and there's just such a difference between the horror conventions and the other kind of cons. It's like the
Yeah,
horror conventions is more like a party atmosphere and also like a family-like atmosphere, where
it is.
it's like even with the celebrities, like the celebrities are all hanging out with each other and also the guests at the after hours party. So they're not all staying up in their hotel rooms. I'm like, I
Hmm.
know especially Kane is known for going out and hanging out with everybody. Felicia's the same way. Tamara, Bill Mosley. Damien and I always hang out afterwards as well. It's just like, because it's a great way to just have fun with everybody. I don't understand why you just want to isolate yourself. I understand if some people, especially some of the women, have had problems with stalkers. I can understand that.
Yeah.
But it's like I think it's a good way to show your appreciation for the people that have given you a career.
Yeah. So besides you and Damien, do the other people do the conventions? Like, does Jenna and Samantha and them, do they all do the
They're
conventions?
about to start doing them now. They were just about to start doing them last year. Then the pandemic happened, but now they've all gotten with some managers, and they're starting to book conventions. So which is I'm very happy because I did convention at Scaricon in Rochester back in fall of 2019, right before we started filming. And that was Jenna's and Catherine's first convention. And I had been trying to talk them into doing conventions before that, and they were kind of hesitant. They didn't know what it was all about. And they did that one. They're like, oh my God, I can totally see why you're so gung ho
Oh, it's
about doing
fun.
these. I'm like, yes, it's so much fun. Like, and
I've
this was
done
just a smaller one.
I've done 3 Horror-ramas and 1 Comic-Con. And although the Comic-Con was fun, I like the Horror-rama one better because I think they have about a dozen guests.
hmm
And I found I was able to mingle with said performer without interrupting anybody in the lineup, you know.
hmm
I like the smaller ones best because
Yeah.
they're more communal, you know, and I
Oh yeah.
always have fun at that one,
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
It's like I've done some small, very small ones before, and I had a blast.
Oh
Just as
yeah.
much fun, if sometimes not more fun at those than I had at the bigger ones.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's the size doesn't matter to me.
No, no. So yeah, and the horror ones especially are a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
fun. So
Oh
I
yeah.
hope they get you at one, you know, and
Yeah. I'm sure it'll happen one day.
oh yeah. Well, you're the new horror icon,
Yeah.
you
Ah.
know? You had a rough patch growing up,
Yeah.
just like I have.
Yeah.
Look at you now.
Yeah. It
I
makes you
mean,
stronger. That's how I look at it.
just
I have
it's
I
what
have to
Conan
say,
said.
yeah, it does. It really does. It's like, as hard as my struggles were growing up, it's like looking back now, it's like that's all the stuff that motivated me
Hmm.
to get where I'm going. Because part of me wanted to be like, I want to show these people one day. I want to show them I'm not this loser that they think I am, that I can be something one day. And I
Hmm.
had that moment when I went for my 20th high school reunion right after Terrifier released on Netflix. I had my 20th reunion back in Alabama. It's I didn't go in there just rubbing it in people's faces. I just let it be. I'm gonna be myself. It is to say like you know the change of attitudes of people. They're like, oh my god, I just saw your movie. Oh my god, you're doing all this stuff. It was kind of like every geek's dream come true, like what you see in movies where like Romy and Michelle's high school reunion
I
type of
love
thing.
that movie.
Yeah, it's just like it was that was what it was. And I had this really interesting epiphany during this. Um, I was talking to some of my friends because we were the drama geeks and the choir geeks back in the day. We were the fringes. And I looked at because I had seen what all they were doing with their lives. And I was like, wow, we're all the ones that got out of Huntsville, Alabama, and we did some really cool stuff in our life. Like one of them was working with some in D.C. with politicians, and another one was up in Seattle doing amazing things. And it's like, wow, we got out. And I looked at the kids that were the most popular kids in high school, the star football players and the cheerleaders and all that. They all stayed there and stagnated. They just went to college, got their degree, got married, and stayed. And that's it. And I was like, wow, that was high school was when they peaked in life.
Yeah.
And you could even see at that reunion, they were trying to recapture those days. And I was like, nah, man, we're living those of us that went through all that crap back in high school. We're living our best days now.
I find I'm living my best days now
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
yeah.
I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's those hardships because I, those popular kids they didn't have the hardships. So they didn't have, in a weird way, I guess they didn't have that same kind of motivation to go out and do something more. They were comfortable. And
Yeah.
it's like, and we're like, no, we want to do something more. There's got to be something more to life than just being this. And
Well, I'm about to turn 49 in July, and I never really started living really until I was like 42 when I started doing
Yeah.
this podcast. And it's not that I wasn't living before, but I never expected this, you know.
yeah,
If 10 years ago somebody's telling me that I was going to be doing this, I would have said they were crazy,
oh, same here.
you
Same
know.
here.
And this is a blast.
Yeah, I'm like, I wouldn't trade this for anything. Like I said, it's like all of that, all the good and the bad that I've gone through in life has all led me to this path. So I wouldn't change
Mm-hmm.
any of that. As hard as it was, especially losing my mom, that was hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at it as that was the catalyst for everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what shook me, and I could have gone a totally different route with my life. And I feel that's that moment where my life, that was that fork in the road for me. It's like you
But
can go down this path or you can go this path.
But remember the encouragement your mom gave you.
Yeah.
She always encouraged you to do
Yep.
what you're doing.
Well, and that's why I
So,
went this path. I was
yeah,
like, I want to make her proud.
there you
Uh,
go. And I
yeah.
guarantee you she is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's
Well,
the thing. Is with life, you don't. It's never too late to try, and you never know what will happen if you don't try. At least try.
absolutely. Well, before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Sure, I can do that for you.
Yeah. Just state your name and that you play Art the Clown and Terrifier, and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Python's Paradise, Greg Gilbert. All right, cool.
Go for it.
All right. Hey, everybody. David Howard Thornton here, Art the Clown himself from Terrifier and the upcoming Let me try that again. All right. Let me go over the Python's Paradise, Gilbert. Let me do the last name again.
Greg Gilbert.
Greg Gilbert. There we go.
You know, it's
I
funny
knew it was two
because
G's.
I
I
had
was thinking
fun
Gilbert Grape. I was like,
when Ariel Teal Toombs, Roddy Piper's daughter, did my show. It took her like 5 times to get it, and
oh,
I kept all the flub ups in there because
oh,
it just
good.
made me laugh, and
Oh,
I
it's
love
just
it
like
because it's so human, you know.
Greg Gilbert, Greg Gilbert, Greg Gilbert, Greg Gilbert, Greg Gilbert.
Yeah,
All right, there we go. Greg
go
Gilbert,
for it.
Python's Paradise. A lot of alliteration.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, horror fans. David Howard Thornton here, Art the Clown himself, from the movies Terrifier and the upcoming Terrifier 2. And you're listening to Greg Gilbert at Python's Paradise. See you later.
Absolutely, David Howard Thornton. Thank you for allowing me the honor to interview you on my show, and I definitely will have you back. You know. Next year, I'm putting you on my list for 2022. By then, you'll have a whole new bunch of other stuff you could talk about.
Woo-hoo.
And
So
yeah,
much more.
yeah, yeah. And hopefully, I'll get some of the other folks from
Oh, definitely.
Terrifier on here, you know? So,
Definitely. Feel free to reach out to them. I'm sure many of them will be happy to do it, if not all of them.
yeah, definitely. I'm definitely going to reach out to Jenna for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like tormenting her after all this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, she can't hurt me on the screen, you know.
Oh, no. Oh, she'll hurt you with her words. Trust me. She knows where to dig the knife in.
That's why you had to have her tied to the chair.
Oh, yeah. With the scotch tape over the mouth. You hurt me with your words.
Oh, well, that would. Well, I look forward to Terrifier 2, and I look forward to seeing what you're doing in the future. God bless you,
Thank
and
you, Greg.
you keep yourself going, and keep us horror fans wondering what is next for
Yes.
David Howard Thornton.
I'd be happy to. Thank you again, Greg.
No problem. Thank you. You have yourself a good night.
You as well, man. You take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.